Chapter 2031. The dress she was wearing was very fitting, as if it had been tailor-made for her. She was also wearing a pair of very beautiful purple pearl earrings, which suited her very well. There was also a very beautiful crystal pendant around her neck. There was also one hanging on her wrist. It was a bracelet with many gemstones. Paired with those half-length dresses, it was really very beautiful. What was even more dazzling was that on her originally pink fingernails, there were actually very beautiful fake fingernails. They were shining, and he had to look away. He still couldn't resist looking at her feet. Sure enough, he also found something different. She was actually wearing a pair of small high heels. Ever since she lost her sight, she had always been wearing simple flats. Because she couldn't see, it was difficult for her to walk in other shoes. For a moment, Zhang Yandong didn't know what to say to such a bright Tanghua. Unconsciously, he walked towards Tanghua's position. Lu Hong was afraid that something would happen, so he quickly followed. Since he had already seen her, he had to at least say hello. Just as he was about to say hello to Tanghua, he couldn't help but look at Lin Xian. Before he could speak, Tanghua spoke first. "Are you Brother Yandong and Coach Lu Hong?" When he heard Tanghua call him Brother Yandong again, Zhang Yandong suddenly realized that this Brother Yandong felt different from when she called him before. It was too calm, too plain. In the past, every time she called out to him, he could feel the boundless affection and joy in her sweet voice. But now, she called him Brother Yanda, as if it was just a title for him. She didn't change the way she called him, but she changed the relationship between them. It was also this title that made Zhang Yandong realize that the little girl who had been by his side since he was young and liked to call him Brother Yanda didn't like him anymore. Yes, he understood. She didn't like him anymore. Otherwise, she wouldn't be standing in front of him so calmly. Her expression was calm, and she greeted him generously. Her hand was held by another person. He didn't have any intention of showing off. It was just a simple greeting to an acquaintance. Zhang Yandong's body stiffened. He stood in place and replied, "It's me. Brother Xian just told me about your performance today. It was just as exciting as before. In the upcoming international competition, you have to work hard and win glory for the country." Hearing such pure blessings, Zhang Yandong didn't feel good. He just couldn't stand it. She really did not like him anymore. The way she liked him was now incomparably deep in his mind. He could instantly recall her infatuated appearance. Zhang Yandong quickly shook his head. In fact, he wasn't that reluctant to break off the engagement. He had to admit that the reason he got engaged to her was not because he liked her, but because he felt guilty. "Xiaoguo, is this your boyfriend?" Lu Hong saw that Zhang Yandong's expression was not right and hurriedly asked, trying to wake Zhang Yandong up. Now that the two of them were over, it wouldn't be good for either of them to be involved with each other. "Yes, this is Lin Xian. He's my boyfriend now." Tanghua introduced him naturally. "Next year, he'll be participating in the esports competition too." Lu Hong nodded and didn't take this matter to heart. However, when he saw the change in Tanghua and looked at the dazed Zhang Yandong, he understood that Tanghua had made the right choice this time. It was easy to tell whether a woman in love was doing well from her appearance. Chapter 2032. After Lin Xian left with Tanghua, Zhang Yandong was still a little despondent. Lu Hong patted him on the shoulder. "Why are you regretting it?" "No, as long as she can find her own happiness, that's all that matters." He could tell that Tanghua was happier than ever today. She was happier than when she could still see. The better she was now, the more upset he felt. It turned out that even without her eyes, she could still be so radiant. The person who could make her radiant was actually that Lin Xian. "Zhang Yandong, are you okay?" Xiaolian also came over and asked with concern. "You should be relieved now. Tanghua has found her own happiness. Don't miss the past anymore." "I know." Lu Hong didn't want Xiaolian and Zhang Yandong to get too close. He waved his hand and said, "Let's go back first. There's still a celebration later." "Xiaolian," Lu Hong whispered to Xiaolian. "The international competition is approaching. You and Zhang Yandong should be careful in public. Don't get too close. It's easy to be used against you. You won again this time. Before this, I'm afraid that they will find an excuse to make a fuss. When that happens, it won't be good for you and Zhang Yandong." The team that Lu Hong was talking about was the one that had lost to their team today. The team's code name was. Of course, that wasn't the full name, but people in the esports industry all called the other team a team. And Jiang Yandong's team had 2 letters for its abbreviation. S. Originally, there was only one abbreviation. S. After Jiang Yandong joined, he created an undefeated legend. The club decided to give Jiang Yandong unlimited glory and added his codename S to the team's abbreviation. Xiao Lian heard Lu Hong's words. Although she felt a little aggrieved, she still nodded and agreed. Recently, she and Jiang Yandong had been working well together. Although there were people scolding her online every day, she still gained many fans who wished her well. It was also these fans' comfort that supported her. Thinking about her grandfather, she felt sad again. That matter was very complicated. Previously, she had secretly gone to see her grandfather. The things that his grandfather had stolen had a wide range of implications. If he really wanted to be sentenced, it would probably take at least a year and a half to come out. If she could find those treasures and hand them over, her crime could be reduced. If she could win the international championship this time, she would receive a large sum of money. Some things could also be bought with money. As for the items that couldn't be bought back, she planned to take some time to look for them after the competition. No matter what method she used, she would find those items and reduce her grandfather's crime. He was her only family member. Seeing that Xiao Lian was unhappy, Tong Hui assumed that she was unhappy because of Tang Hua's appearance. When he saw the comments about Tang Hua's new boyfriend on the internet, he couldn't help but log into his Smurf account and post a comment. I think that Tang Hua was just pretending to be deeply in love with Jiang Yandong to gain everyone's sympathy. Otherwise, how could she have found a new boyfriend in just 3 months? Don't be fooled by her. Even if she's blind and weak, it doesn't mean that she's a good person. She's always been infatuated with Jiang Yandong. How could she have a new boyfriend in just 3 months? This comment was quickly discussed by many people. For a moment, some people were led astray. They believed Tong Hui's words and really thought that Tang Hua was a half-hearted and pretentious person. Chapter 2033. In an instant, a portion of the netizens began to criticize Tang Hua. The system caught this immediately. Even though Tang Hua was walking around with the bald guy and eating ice cream, it couldn't help but remind her. Is that so? Yes. Many people are saying that the host is pretentious and pretentious, pretending to be weak to gain sympathy. Who did it? Tongzi, I didn't hurt anyone's interests, especially Team W's people. They probably wouldn't attack me. If they wanted to attack me, they would only use my weakness and pitifulness to attack Jiang Yandong. Find out who did it. Of course, such a small matter couldn't stump the system. It didn't take long for it to find the culprit. Madam Host, it's Tong Hui. So it's him. He always finds me an eyesore. This person is really annoying. This time, he actually provoked me directly. Before she could say anything else, the system's voice sounded again. Madam Host, there's a new situation. Someone who claims to be your fan posted a video in the social media. Currently, many VIPs have reposted it. What video? It's the video of Lu Hongxiao discussing things in the cafe. There's also the video of you going to Jiang Yandong's club and talking to those people. Anyway, the video of you helping Jiang Yandong compromise and your voice are all in that video. Now, many people are watching it and discussing it. Tang Hua almost laughed out loud. She just wanted to ask Tongzi to help her play 2 videos. She didn't expect that someone would think of the same thing. They acted so quickly. It seemed like they wanted to use her to attack Jiang Yandong. Look, Tong Hui's good deed backfired in less than half an hour. It was obvious that people shouldn't do bad things that hurt others. Otherwise, even looking at someone directly in the eye might backfire on them. Indeed, Tong Hui, who had just finished eating and went to the washroom, came back and realized that the atmosphere wasn't right. After knowing the reason, he quickly went online to look at the videos. They were both blurry and unclear. In any case, he could see who the person was and hear what the voice was saying. His expression immediately turned ugly. He looked at the comments and the team's official Weibo account. Jiang Yandong, Xiao Lian, and even their entire team, except for the people who had tried to persuade Tang Hua that day, had all been attacked. Everyone was scolding them for being shameless for bullying a blind little girl. They were clearly the ones in the wrong, but in the end, a little girl had to stand up and clean up for them. Tong Hui slumped weakly in his seat under the torrent of abuse. And with his movements, it was almost impossible to watch. Everyone was scolding him for his cheap mouth. They didn't expect him to be such a person. It was really disgusting to scold someone who said such things. He watched helplessly as his fans continued to drop. The image that he had of an honest and upright man collapsed in an instant. As for Zhang Yandong and Xiaolian, they were better off. After all, he had been scolded on and off for several months. He was the scum, and Xiaolian was the third. No one was surprised and thought that this was expected. Chapter 2034. With the help of the system, people quickly found out about Tong Hui's alternate account. Then, they were shocked to find out that the person who first expressed his dissatisfaction with Tanghua and caused Tanghua to be scolded by so many people was actually Tong Hui's alternate account. Coupled with the video, they instantly concluded that Tong Hui was a person with bad morals and a cheap mouth. Those who were still doubtful no longer had any doubts. That was because Tong Hui's tone was exactly the same as what he had said in the video. It was too easy to identify. Now, everyone was happily eating a big melon. This reduced the number of people who attacked Zhang Yandong and Xiaolian. Everyone went to scold Tong Hui's account. This cheap mouth. A big guy like him actually dared to bully a blind girl. Xiaogua had wronged herself in order to help Zhang Yandong get through a difficult time. The club asked her to delete the video, so she did. They asked her to record another video to prove that she and Zhang Yandong had cleared up the misunderstanding, so she did it. When they arrived at the club, Tong Hui still said those nasty things. If it had happened to any of them, they wouldn't have been able to tolerate it. They didn't scold Tanghua because she had done all this. She didn't intend to continue with Zhang Yandong. Instead, she wanted him to consider breaking up. It was clear that she was already disappointed in this relationship and didn't want to continue. She also understood that her efforts wouldn't yield results. Combined with the time Zhang Yandong had said that the engagement was annulled, it meant that she had broken up with Zhang Yandong after that one time. Since they had broken up and Zhang Yandong didn't care about her and it had already been more than 3 months, why couldn't she find a new relationship? Could it be that Zhang Yandong was a deity that had descended to the mortal world? She had left Zhang Yandong, yet she still had to stay by his side. Her new relationship with Zhang Yandong was a mistake? Was she not loyal to Zhang Yandong? That didn't make sense. The more they thought about it, the angrier the netizens became. They scolded Zhang Yandong, Xiaolian, Tong Hui, and the team's club. Of course, Coach Lu Hong couldn't avoid being scolded as well. Compared to the embarrassment of the others, Lu Hong wasn't that angry about the abuse. In retrospect, he felt that these people were right to scold him. After that, he watched the video in the coffee shop no less than 5 times. He started to hate himself in the video. He used to be an esports player with dreams. Later on, when he got older, his ability could not keep up with the younger people. He did not want to leave the industry, so he stayed and became a coach. For the sake of victory, for the sake of not affecting the competition, for the sake of their teammates' reputation, they actually let a weak girl block for them. The more he thought about it, the more upset he felt. When the members of the battle team found out that Tong Hui was the one who had caused all the commotion, they all looked at him strangely. Although they didn't say much, they were very dissatisfied with Tong Hui. Tong Hui was naturally criticized, but he didn't think he was wrong. However, at this time, he also understood that he could not face them head-on. When the person in charge scolded him, he just listened. He didn't say a word and remained silent throughout. In addition, his ability was not bad and he played well in the first round. Basically, in the first 4 minutes, he was able to steadily defend the tower and provide support. His technique was also not bad. The roster was also reported. Unless the player had an irresistible factor, they were not allowed to change players midway. The person in charge didn't dare to criticize too harshly, but he was holding back his anger and was especially unhappy. Chapter 2035. However, Tong Hui's life was not easy. Every day, people would send him private messages, scold him on Weibo, and scold him on his social media account. He even became a trending topic because of this. It wasn't just one trending topic. In the past, many celebrities would have begged for such a spot, but he didn't want to be on it at all. The topic was about the honest boy Tong Hui, who was actually a scumbag with a foul mouth. Tong Huai's livestream broke his persona, and he was so angry that he trembled. The most despicable thing was that a bunch of people commented that they really wanted to tear his mouth apart. There were even people who photoshopped his mouth into all sorts of things. It was simply infuriating. One of the photos that left the deepest impression on him was that he spat out a mouthful of feces every time he said a word. He was so angry that he wanted to send a lawyer's letter. However, that photo was all over the internet. In this era of big data, there was no way to send a lawyer's letter to everyone. There was no way to pursue the matter. Those things were just for scaring people. Ordinary people were happy and weren't afraid of that at all. Tong Huai's days were going crazy. Zhang Yandong and Xiao Yin were also scolded badly. Fortunately, the club's investor valued Zhang Yandong's ability and stepped in to suppress the public opinion. That was why it wasn't as bad as before. The suppression could only suppress the trending topic. Those who deserved to be scolded could be scolded anywhere. The club was afraid that the public opinion would affect the three of them, so they informed them to go into closed-door training. They couldn't interact with the internet for a while. No matter what, they had to compete in the international competition first. Once they won, they could plan the rest later. Tanghua had a more comfortable life. She had the bald guy to accompany her every day. Lin Xian had to train in the morning and would only come in the afternoon. Later, he asked if she would be bored at home alone and if she wanted to go to the club to play. Tanghua agreed. When she arrived at the club, she realized that Lin Xian had specially prepared a seat for her. There were also some custom-made books that could be touched by hand. There was also a voice-controlled machine. What was even scarier was that a few days later, Lin Xian told her that he had bought a piano and placed it in the club. Won't it affect your training? How could it? We're all wearing earplugs. Besides, the soothing piano sound doesn't affect us at all. It can even be used as background music. Tanghua was just asking casually. After all, she had practiced sound techniques before. She could make the music become whatever she wanted. When no one minded, she began to play the piano in the club. After everyone heard this, they felt that it was better than expected. Especially when they were playing games, they realized that listening to her piano music could actually calm their anxiety and calm them down. It was especially magical. Xian, how did you find such a good girlfriend? Lin Xian smiled and said, maybe we were lucky. The first time we went to watch Zhang Yandong compete, we were sitting next to each other. After that, there were all kinds of coincidences, and we sat next to each other every day, Lin Tong added. I really didn't expect Brother Xian to be the alpha wolf, always waiting for an opportunity to make a move. Lin Xian said a little embarrassedly, I didn't think too much at first. I just wanted to help her. They knew Lin Xian's character very well. He was just joking. It's really a pity. This was what everyone in the club was thinking. Even if she couldn't see, she could still play the piano so well. It was a pity that such a genius would never be able to stand on the stage and play such a beautiful melody. Chapter 2036. Lin Xian looked at Tanghua, who was sitting in front of the piano. She seemed to be immersed in the beautiful melody. At that moment, he had an impulse. He really wanted to see her sitting on the stage, radiating light from her body. Who said that if you couldn't participate in the competition, you couldn't stand on the stage? Is the Lin family sponsoring the international competition this time? Lin Xian suddenly asked. Lin Li nodded. Yes. Ever since we started this esports team. Although the elders at home said that we can do whatever we want, they will still support us when we need to. Even if we haven't participated in an international competition before, they still have to give us face. Who knows, maybe one day, it will be a member of the Lin family who will go up on stage. Moreover, for an international competition, once they won, they would win glory for their country. Sponsoring such an event didn't cost much. It could be seen as support for a new industry. With advertising and fame, there was no harm in it. What do you guys say? Let Xiaogu go up on stage and play the piano for everyone. Lin Xian said what was in his heart. I think that the melody she plays is very beautiful. It will make people immerse themselves in it. Inserting a program during the opening song shouldn't affect the competition, right? Lin Li, Lin Tong, and the others looked at each other, then nodded and said in unison, Yes, Xian, you're really something. No wonder you were able to get such a beautiful girlfriend. They didn't know when this flirting skill of his had been developed. He had taught her how to put on makeup, bought her a piano, made her a custom music score, and now he wanted her to play the opening song. No girl could escape this kind of gentleness, okay? There's no problem with this. But you still have to discuss it with Xiaoguo first. What if she's not willing? System, you're thinking too much. His host will definitely be willing. Host, your big cutie is getting more and more considerate. He was so considerate that he couldn't feel any jealousy. He could only wish him well and hope that he could continue to be so cute. When Lin Xian mentioned this to Tanghua, she immediately agreed. The original owner also felt regret about not being able to return to the stage, but she didn't regret it. But as a person who loved the piano, it was always sad that he could never play it or compose that beautiful melody himself. Before the international competition, the Lin group suddenly said that they wanted to insert an opening song. During the rehearsal, the girl who played the piano would come over. Of course, they wouldn't refuse such a small request. When they saw that it was Tanghua, they were all shocked. They knew about the huge commotion on the internet a while ago. They were well aware of what had happened between Jiang Yandong and Tanghua. They felt pity for this young girl. She had lost too much. But she had never thought that she would be able to stand on the stage again and play the piano. The results of the rehearsal were surprisingly satisfactory. They had even discussed with Tanghua if there were any more intense songs. Of course, Tanghua was prepared. He played a few songs for them, and in the end, he even played the game's theme song. Hearing this, they were extremely excited. This opening would definitely be very exciting. Just as they expected, when the international competition started, the stage was surrounded by smoke. Tanghua was wearing a white dress and sitting in front of the piano. Chapter 2037. Her slender fingers landed on the piano keys. When her hand fell, the beautiful melody instantly spread to the ears of the audience present and the live broadcast audience. At that moment, they all quieted down. When her melody became more and more passionate, they also became excited. Music was so magical. It could make people resonate and immerse them in it. They could experience the beauty of heaven, the happiness of the world, and the grief and anger of hell. At this moment, Imin experienced passion, joy, excitement, courage, and struggle. When the song ended, the audience was still immersed. After a few seconds, they reacted and warmly applauded. At this time, the smoke dissipated and they saw the face of the girl sitting in front of the piano. They were really shocked. Wasn't this Tanghua? At this time, Lin Xian had already gone on stage and held Tanghua's hand. He also held a rose in his hand and placed it in her hand. This romantic scene caused the fans present to scream. Tanghua had found a very considerate boyfriend. This was known to everyone, and the female fans all realized a problem. Ever since Tanghua had a new boyfriend, she had put on makeup, accessories, dresses, and high heels. This is what it means to be a girl in love. When Tanghua and Jiang Yandong were engaged, such a thing didn't happen. Xinbei Chinese Network. Nepsp. M. Common every time he met Tanghua, she was alone. It seemed that other than helping Jiang Yandong clarify those things, he was never by her side. For a time, they were very subtle about Jiang Yandong, even though today was the start of the international competition. Although today was not the time for Jiang Yandong's team to compete, they still wanted to see what kind of expression Jiang Yandong had at this time. Xinbei Chinese Network. Nepsp. M. Com today was the start of the competition, and all the teams would show up. When Jiang Yandong saw Tanghua being held by Lin Xian from the stage, he was also full of complicated feelings. So Xiaoguo could play the piano? The fact that Tanghua could play the piano caused a sensation. After today's competition, she was brought out by Lin Xian. Immediately, a few reporters came to interview her. Because Lin Xian was the young master of the Lin family, they did not dare to go too far. They only asked about Tanghua's hand in a very euphemistic way. After all, the destruction of a generation of geniuses had caused a huge sensation. Seeing Tanghua's good performance today, they could not help but ask. Moreover, she could play such a fast and passionate melody when she could not see. It was obvious how many times she had recited the score. No one knew how long she had to memorize it. Reporter. Miss Tang, may I ask if your hand has recovered? Tanghua, my fingers have completely recovered. Reporter, oh, Miss Tang has been receiving treatment all these years. Tanghua, I didn't receive any other treatment. It was all because I met Brother Xian. He used his ancestral massage technique and came to massage my joints every day. He didn't miss a single day. It took 3 months. The reporter was a little shocked. Was that true? Reporter, Miss Tang has changed a lot in these 3 months. We remember that you used to wear flat shoes when you went out. You rarely put on makeup. You also chose the simplest style of clothes. Now that you're dressed up so well, I almost didn't recognize you. Tanghua's lips curved. This was a good question. She was worried that she would not be able to share with others how capable her brother Xian was. She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about. Now that everyone was immersed in the topic of Lin Xian's boyfriend, the number of people scolding Zhang Yandong and the others had decreased. Xian Shi, one Chinese network. But Zhang Yandong was not happy. The better Tanghua was, the worse he felt. It wasn't that he couldn't bear to see her living a good life, but he realized that she was living a better life without him. This clearly showed that he had wronged her and treated her harshly. However, this sadness was quickly alleviated by Xiao Lian's comfort. Lu Hong was also scrolling through the trending searches and watching videos. Looking at the dazzling Tanghua, he sighed. Zhang Yandong really owed this girl too much. Since he liked her, he had to think of ways to treat her well and help her realize her dreams. I want to chat with more like-minded people about. Chapter 2039. In the following period of time, the internet did not pay much attention to this international competition. But every time a match opened, Tanghua would go up and play the opening song. Through this incident, everyone knew Lin Xian's identity. This was the young madam of the Lin family supporting them, and it sounded so good. As a result, the remaining tickets were quickly sold out. Everyone was not just fighting for tickets for the competition, but also to experience what it was like to be a lemon spirit. During this period, Lin Xian's parents met Tanghua. It was Lin Xian who asked her if she was willing to go back and meet them. Of course, Tanghua was willing to meet them. She had been dating Lin Xian for a few months, and the Lin family did not stop them. It was clear that they did not object to them. She did not know that the Lin couple was so happy that they did a background check on her. They knew that her parents were very busy and contributed to the country, and that she used to be a very outstanding girl. Of course, she was still outstanding now. Now that their son was no longer a monk and knew how to flirt with girls, they were naturally very happy. As for her eyes, that was not a problem. They even planned to invest more in medicine in the future. Perhaps in the future, when the technology was more advanced, they would be able to cure this girl's eyes. Even if it could not be cured, it would not stop them from liking this girl. It was not difficult to memorize one piece of music, but it would be hard to memorize 10 or more pieces. During this period of time, Tanghua played a different piece every time. Sometimes, she would play several times in a row. There were even people who invited her to participate in various shows. She was not interested in participating in those reality shows, but she would not reject some of the opening and closing performances if they were of a larger scale. But every time, Lin Xian would accompany her. Just like that, the international competition ended. The winning team was still Zhang Yandong's team, although it was a narrow victory this time. It was not that there was a problem, but the other team members were also very outstanding. Fortunately, they did not make any mistakes, or they would have lost this time. Everyone had enough. They had enough of the sweet love between Tanghua and Lin Xian. Later, they dragged Zhang Yandong, Xiao Lian, and Tong Hui out for a walk. Of course, the one who was scolded the most this time was Zhang Yandong. Zhang Yandong was probably the only person who could win the competition and get scolded. I'll give you guys a break first. Have fun and rest for a while before you start training again. However, don't forget to familiarize yourself with what you need to familiarize yourself with every day. Take 2 hours to practice your hands. Don't get rusty, Lu Hong said. Then, the club had a rare moment of peace. After the players left, Lu Hong was called by the person in charge. Lu Hong, help me analyze the situation. The members of the other teams are mainly top laners and support players, especially the top laners. Find them for me. If they're suitable, offer them a high price when the time comes. When Lu Hong heard this, he understood that the person in charge was holding a grudge. Last time, Tong Hui had not given him any face, and that had caused him to feel aggrieved. After all, if it wasn't for Tong Hui, the team wouldn't be in so much trouble. Lu Hong nodded. All right. However, he still admired Tong Hui's skills. It was just that his character wasn't good enough. Xiao Lian left the club and disappeared. Netcomputer/M. With the prize money, she naturally went to buy those things. Although she had borrowed quite a lot from her teammates, those things were expensive and she couldn't buy much. She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about transmigration. Female supporting character, calm down, talking about life, looking for confidence, peak. Chapter 2040. The Lin's Club also planned to have a holiday for everyone to rest. Because the next time they started training, they would welcome a new member, Lin Xian. Although Lin Xian had been training with them, he joined in the middle of the last season and started from scratch, so he didn't have a chance to play. They also had to compete, so they didn't have much time to train with him. When they came back from the holiday, they would start formal training. A training centered around Lin Xian was about to begin. During the holiday, Lin Xian decided to take Tanghua on a trip, just the two of them. This fake Tanghua had a good life. While dating the bald guy, the system reported to her about Xiao Lian's situation. After Xiao Lian received the prize money, she borrowed money from a few close friends in the team and went to buy the things that old man Xiao had stolen. As for how she found out about the whereabouts of the things, after all, she was also a member of the circle of talented people, so she could ask around. After many conflicts, Xiao Lian could only borrow money from Jiang Yandong, Tong Hui, and Wen Yunyang. The others probably wouldn't lend money to her, so she couldn't ask for it. The three of them did lend her money. Wen Yunyang lent her 3 million yuan, and Jiang Yandong knew that she was doing it for her grandfather, so he lent her more than half of his money, which totaled up to tens of millions. When Tanghua heard this, she almost choked. Jiang Yandong's family wasn't bad, and he was good at making money. After all, he would occasionally take on some endorsements, but he didn't take many of them, so he made money relatively quickly. But he lent money to a teammate all of a sudden, and they weren't even boyfriend and girlfriend, and he didn't even write an IOU. She suspected that Jiang Yandong's brain was damaged. As for Tong Hui, when he heard that Xiao Lian needed help to save her grandfather, they all went bankrupt. They all thought that her family had gone bankrupt and was in debt. She had borrowed the money to pay off her debts or to make a comeback. They never thought that Xiao Lian had borrowed the money to buy back the stolen goods and hand them over to the country to reduce her grandfather's sentence. Moreover, Tong Hui came from a well-to-do family. Plus, he earned a lot of money from the competition. If it weren't for his bad reputation, many people would have approached him to endorse their products after the competition. But in the end, he still lent Xiao Lian 5 million yuan, which was not a small amount. The system then described to Tanghua that Tong Hui was very interested in Xiao Lian. If it wasn't for the fact that she was busy, he would have asked her out to have fun. He wanted to take advantage of the holidays to develop their relationship. After all, he did Xiao Lian a big favor, didn't he? Xiao Lian had spent all her money in less than 10 days after she disappeared. Those people were all cunning. She had to spend several times the price to buy back a part of it. She couldn't buy the rest because she didn't have enough money. Left with no choice, she could only return to her old profession, planning to steal these things back. Those things weren't clean to begin with. Wouldn't it be fine as long as she handed them over to the country? But the rich people nowadays were all smart. With so many high-tech products, they would definitely have all kinds of defensive measures. Xiao Lian was just flesh and blood. She wasn't a god. In front of high-tech products, even old man Xiao had to be careful, let alone her. Hence, she risked her life and put in a lot of effort to go there, but she didn't succeed even once. She was even injured all over. Once, she was chased by many people. Her injuries were too serious. She escaped to a certain place and urgently called Jiang Yandong. At that time, Tong Hui was also with Jiang Yandong. When the two of them heard that she was in danger, they rushed over without a word. At this point, it was almost time for the two clubs to resume their training. When the training was about to resume, Zhang Yandong and Xiao Yin became popular again. The reason was that someone took a photo of Zhang Yandong and Xiao Yin together. Originally, everyone had forgotten about it. Now, weren't they asking for a scolding? After the club's person in charge found out that Tong Hui was also there, he decided on the spot to announce to the public that Xiao Yin and Tong Hui were a couple. Zhang Yandong was just in passing. He had asked around. At that time, the three of them were walking on the street together. Xiao Yin was in the middle, and Tong Hui was on the other side. Hence, this decision was completely fine. In any case, he was planning to replace these two people. Sacrificing them to protect Zhang Yandong's innocence was the best choice. Tanghua said, I want to treat their person in charge to a meal. Chapter 2041. Tanghua and the system hadn't been talking for long when a piece of news was released online. Tong Hui and Xiao Yin were a couple. The photos that had been leaked earlier were actually taken by someone who had purposely taken only Xiao Yin and Zhang Yandong. Tong Hui was actually with them. At first, no one believed it, but after the club took out a photo of the three of them walking on the street, they had no choice but to believe it. Did that mean that there was nothing wrong with Zhang Yandong and Xiao Yin? And Xiao Yin and Tong Hui? How did these two people with stinky reputations end up together? No matter what, Xiao Yin and Zhang Yandong had proven their innocence this time. But they still didn't think that Xiao Yin was innocent. Instead, they thought that Xiao Yin was a white lotus and a green tea who couldn't hook up with Zhang Yandong, so he chose Tong Hui. After all, the most outstanding people in this team were Zhang Yandong, Tong Hui, and Wen Yunyang. Tong Hui and Xiao Yin's announcement that they were a couple didn't reduce the amount of scolding. Xiao Yin received the most scolding. On the other hand, the number of people scolding Zhang Yandong decreased significantly. After all, Xiao Yin already had a boyfriend, and Zhang Yandong's fans were pretty good. Even if he didn't do anything, everyone would still speak up for him. They didn't think that the person in charge made this decision because he hated Tong Hui. Tong Hui was good, and Xiao Yin wasn't bad either, but they weren't irreplaceable. Their reputations were ruined. Tong Hui originally had many companies looking for him to be their spokesperson, but now that his reputation was ruined, no one was willing. As for Xiao Yin, so what if she won the competition? Looking for a woman with a reputation as a mistress to be their spokesperson? That would be crazy. By putting these two together, it was clear that the person in charge was a little vicious. With her reputation ruined, he saw that Xiao Yin wasn't someone who knew her place. He might as well poach members from other teams. Recently, Lu Hong had helped him choose a few. He had also looked for some for himself and was discussing the contract. Tong Hui and Xiao Yin didn't know about this. Xiao Yin was troubled by these troubles, but Tong Hui was secretly delighted. At first, he was secretly delighted. Later, he realized that other than in front of outsiders, Xiao Yin would stand beside him. When no one was looking, she was the closest to Zhang Yandong. No, it should be said that they were very close. Especially in the club, when he saw the interaction between Xiao Yin and Zhang Yandong, he almost jumped up and beat them up. The club members soon realized that Tong Hui was out of his mind. Otherwise, why would he always go against Zhang Yandong? The person in charge was worried that he wouldn't be able to replace Tong Hui, so he found Tong Hui and Zhang Yandong to start a conflict. It was also during training that Tong Hui was deliberately distracted and didn't cooperate with Zhang Yandong's training, dragging him down. After a few times, the person in charge finally stood up and said, Tong Hui, I see that you haven't been in good condition recently. Take a break. You don't have to worry about the rest of the training. After all, we have so many people in the club. In a well-established club, there would definitely be many hidden talents. For a moment, Tong Hui was dumbfounded. However, they couldn't refute the person in charge's words. Just like that, Tong Hui was replaced with the excuse of letting him rest. But in reality, wasn't this just freezing him? With his current reputation, no club would be willing to take him in. They wouldn't even take him if he didn't ask for money. In this industry, there was no shortage of young players who were good at gaming. By Geo, Noo, Nob, O1C, Quickware, supporting female lead, Calm Down Clawpeak. Later on, They found that whenever the Lin family invested in a large-scale program, Tanghua would appear and occasionally show her skills. Gradually, everyone's evaluation of her was that she was a girl who simply loved the piano and played it without any distractions. As long as Lin Xian was not training, he would go with Tanghua. If they were training, he would bring along 2 bodyguards, a stylist, and a makeup artist. He would then have to trouble Madame Chun to accompany Tanghua. With Madame Chun watching, Lin Xian was more assured. Days passed, and the people in the club were surprised every day. They had a feeling that they would have a chance to participate in the international competition. Baijio, Noo, Nob, O1C, Quick Wear, Supporting Female Lead, Calm Down, Peak. Chapter 2043. Lin Xian's efforts back then were not in vain. Not only did he analyze Zhang Yandong, but he also analyzed the entire team. He analyzed all the members of each team. Then, he shared his insights with everyone one by one, found their own weaknesses, and constantly improved them. With Lin Xian's addition, their strength grew. In order to better showcase their team's strength, they would contact the teams of other clubs to play friendly matches. Of course, not many people were willing to do it for free. The young people of the Lin family did not lack money. They used their funds to hire people to compete with them. When the other clubs saw this situation, they understood that the Lin family's team probably wanted to enter the international competition. Other than Zhang Yandong's team, the Lin family's team had competed with all the other famous teams in the country. Later, with the Lin family's influence, they used the excuse of a vacation to go overseas and compete with the teams of various countries in advance. This operation was suggested by Lin Xian. It had to be said that it was very flirtatious. After all, they did not lack money or funds. Besides passion, those who defeated the international competition also had fame and fortune. Under such a huge temptation, who would not be willing to compete with them? It was worth mentioning that Tanghua had always followed them to the country, not the other way around. Instead, she had received an invitation to perform. Anyone who had heard her piano music could understand the uniqueness of it, especially her original compositions. It was simply a taste of life. When Lin Xian and the rest returned, Tanghua had become popular in the art world. Her music was not a performance type, but it could make people feel as if they were there and reminisce about it. As soon as they returned, Tanghua received a message from the system. It should be considered a good news. Tong Hui has been arrested and is currently in detention. What happened? Tanghua was very curious. How did that bastard end up in detention? The system paused for a moment and said, he realized that not only did Xiao Lian not like him, but she even liked Zhang Yandong. He felt that he had been cuckolded. He was so angry that he quarreled with Xiao Lian. In short, it was not a happy ending. Tong Hui was unwilling to give up, so he came up with a crooked idea to get the girl first. Although Xiao Lian fell for the trap, she still had some tricks up her sleeves. In a moment of desperation, she escaped and then she fled to Zhang Yandong's place. The two of them got together, right? That's right. After that, Tong Hui was captured. It was Zhang Yandong who called the police. He felt that he had given Tong Hui too many chances. This time, he must teach him a lesson. Is Xiao Lian planning to sue him? I don't think Xiao Lian has that intention because she remembered that Tong Hui had lent her 5 million yuan. She couldn't bear to do that. She also knew that Tong Hui had made a mistake because he liked her. Zhang Yandong planned to sue, but was stopped by Xiao Lian. Now, he should only be locked up for a few days before being released on bail. That's a pity. His mouth is cheap, and he even did that kind of thing. Why didn't he just lock him up for a few years? No matter when, Tanghua had always thought that men who used such despicable means to bully girls should be cut off from their roots. Xiao Lian's benevolence might leave behind a disaster. Of course, it had nothing to do with her. In less than 2 days, the system sent her another message. Tong Hui had been fired by the club. The person in charge had found something that could be used against him. How could a person who bullied a female teammate stay? Baijio, Noo, Nob, O1C, Quick Wear, Supporting Female Lead, Calm Down, Peak. Chapter 2044. There was no way to hide the fact that Tong Hui had been fired. In the age of information and communication, the slightest movement would be known. There was no need to hide this. Although Tong Huai's family wasn't bad, they weren't big shots. After leaving the club and the protection of capital, he was basically a useless pawn. Who would be willing to help him suppress all this? So he was fired. How did he get fired? Everything about his performance in the club was stripped clean. Nothing was left. Of course, this was also because the person in charge didn't block the news on purpose. He was a narrow-minded person. If you were capable, like Zhang Yandong, who was irreplaceable, he would definitely swallow his pride and support you. But someone like Tong Huai could be replaced. As long as it didn't affect the big picture, he would think of a way to kick him out. Tong Huai's matter being exposed was also within his expectations. The club had already prepared a way to remove themselves from it. In an instant, everyone was calling for Tong Huai's downfall. They could tolerate Tong Huai's foul mouth and bad character, but they definitely couldn't tolerate him using such despicable means to deal with a girl. No matter who the girl was, the majority of the netizens couldn't tolerate such behavior. Who would dare to use Tong Huai, who had wanted to make a comeback? Moreover, the Team Alliance banned Tong Huai from competing for the rest of his life. They definitely couldn't allow such a person to continue polluting the esports scene. Tong Huai's esports career was over. Tanghua breathed a sigh of relief after watching this series of farce. She felt a little good. System. So did he. Although Zhang Yandong and Xiao Lian were together, they didn't dare to announce their relationship to avoid trouble with the club. They would only be intimate when no one was around. After leaving the club, Xiao Lian secretly followed Zhang Yandong back. There was no such thing as an airtight wall in the world. The secret relationship between Zhang Yandong and Xiao Lian was also exposed. But at this time, a new season of competition had begun. The person in charge who hadn't replaced Xiao Lian was filled with regret. It was all his fault. He shouldn't have saved that 1 million. Hearing all kinds of strange noises at night, his eyebrows were about to burn off. What was going on? One was Tong Huai, and the other was Xiao Lian. They were both troublemakers. How many of our substitute members are good support players? Xiao Lian had always been a thorn in the hearts of the people in charge. It had not been easy for everyone to forget Zhang Yandong's black mark, but now it was impossible to wash it clean. Now, there were a lot of people online who were against Xiao Lian's participation in the competition. She had really stirred up public anger. If it was just a little noise, it could still be suppressed. No one liked it. His club was different from other clubs. They were nurtured like celebrities. After all, if they had a good personality and were famous, they could earn more money by taking on endorsements. At the end of the day, which capitalist wouldn't want to earn money? Could it be that they were doing charity for these esports players? 2 of them are not bad. Lu Hong hesitated for a moment and asked, Manager Li, are you planning to replace them? That's right. Look at what's happening on the internet now. Speaking of this, he was a little upset with Lu Hong. If Lu Hong hadn't said that Xiao Lian's talent was good, he wouldn't have been tempted to recruit her. If we switch people, Zhang Yandong, by Nuo, Noo, Nob, O1C, Vertex. Chapter 2045. You think he'll be unhappy? Manager Li was unhappy. Even if he's unhappy, I'm unhappy. Look at what they've done. If Zhang Yandong didn't have a fiancé, he and Xiao Lian would have been a great couple. Even though he knew that Zhang Yandong had a fiancé, his team had gone crazy and decided to couple the 2 of them when he wasn't paying attention. It almost killed him. This matter angered him so much that he fired the person directly. What was the use of a team like that? He had to clean up the mess. I'm just worried that Zhang Yandong won't be happy and will screw up. For a woman, is he really going to ruin his career and give up on victory? It had to be said that Manager Li understood Zhang Yandong's mentality very well. If Zhang Yandong didn't maintain his legend of invincibility, losing a match wouldn't be a big deal to him. However, he had already enjoyed countless glories. No one would be able to take it if he was suddenly pulled down. Manager Li thought that even if Zhang Yandong wasn't happy with Xiao Lian being replaced, he wouldn't make a fuss. Instead, he would focus on the competition. Lu Hong was only a coach. He could only do something about training and selecting players. There was nothing else that he could do. He could feel Manager Li's anger towards the two of them. If it weren't for the fact that Zhang Yandong was irreplaceable, Manager Li would have replaced him. He sighed. Then I'll call those two over. You can take a look. Not long after, Tangguo received news that Xiaolian had been switched to the reserve team. That's fast. System. Yeah. Their manager is really good. I don't think he was the one who did those stupid things before. He's made a few wise decisions recently, especially that one against Tong Hui. It was so smart that no one could find fault with it. Moreover, Tong Hui only hates Xiaolian and Zhang Yandong. He has no complaints towards Manager Li. It was really sinister. No matter what, he's the boss of the entire club. Previously, the operations of the team were handed over to the team under him. Who would have thought that something would go wrong? Later on, when he saw that the situation wasn't right, he took over it himself. Now, Tangguo was looking forward to what kind of big news the other side would reveal. The netizens were also very satisfied that Xiaolian had been replaced. His impression of Zhang Yandong's team had improved, and his attitude towards the club had improved by quite a bit. Xiaolian felt terrible. She looked at Zhang Yandong with tears in her eyes. Zhang Yandong, why didn't you speak up for me? We've been fair and square, and I've never broken anything. You should know that after training for so long. How can you change people just like that? She was really indignant. The esports scene was also her dream. When Manager Li announced the results, Zhang Yandong didn't say anything against it. Xiaolian, that's not what I meant. Chapter 2046. After an argument, it was easy to leave an unpleasant impression on the other party. If the person in charge of the club wasn't Manager Li, he might have been able to threaten him with his position. However, Manager Li had a powerful background. He was the son of a big family. Even though Zhang Yandong was young and had achieved a lot in the game, he knew that he could not afford to offend someone like this. His plan was to perform well in the next competition and try to leave a good impression on Manager Li. After winning the national and international championships, he would talk to Manager Li about Xiaolian returning to the team. His relationship with Xiaolian had indeed caused a lot of trouble for the club. He also felt that after winning the previous competition, the number of companies looking for him to endorse had decreased by half. It was good that Xiaolian was taking a break for a season. He would work hard and achieve another victory, continuing the legend of being undefeated. When that time came, Manager Li would be happy and would not make things difficult for Xiaolian. It would be easy for her to come back. Xiaolian did not think too much about it. She only knew that Zhang Yandong did not speak up for her. Hence, when she saw Zhang Yandong's silence, she pushed the door open and ran out. Don't chase after me. I want to calm down. Xiaolian's voice rang out, and Zhang Yandong stopped in his tracks. He really did not chase after her. He felt that she really needed to calm down. He had been troubled recently. For the upcoming competition, he could not afford to be distracted. Zhang Yandong did not know that Xiaolian, who was upset, actually went to Wen Yunyang to pour her heart out. This time, Wen Yunyang also felt that Zhang Yandong had gone too far by not helping Xiaolian, although he also felt that objecting would not be of much use. However, he felt that since Zhang Yandong had chosen to be with Xiaolian, he should at least try to fight for her. In the end, he had agreed. It would be strange if Xiaolian was not upset. Xiaolian and Zhang Yandong had become more distant recently. After the team's training ended, she did not go on dates with him. Wen Yunyang was smarter than Tong Hui. He did not go out with Xiaolian directly. Instead, he called, texted, and ordered takeout for her. Suddenly, he became the only person who gave Xiaolian warmth. No matter what happened, she would look for Wen Yunyang. As time passed, Wen Yunyang saw that it was about time to confess his feelings to Xiaolian. In the end, he was naturally rejected. Her original words were that she only treated him as a friend, a gentle big brother, but the one she loved in her heart was Zhang Yandong. That's right. Recently, she and Zhang Yandong had reconciled. Tangguo, keep your distance, understand? Look at her boyfriend. He refused to chat with any girls. Every time, he would use the same excuse to go back to accompany his girlfriend. Wen Yunyang was smarter than Tong Hui. Every time he looked at Xiaolian, he would put on a hurt and helpless expression, causing Xiao Lian to feel guilty. Sometimes, when no one was looking, Wen Yunyang would be a little intimate with her. For example, hugging, shaking hands, or even kissing her. She could not reject him. When he heard that she was short of money, Wen Yunyang did not hesitate to transfer a few million to her. Xiao Lian did not know what to do. Zhang Yandong's team and the Lin family's team represented the north and south respectively. Lin Xian led the team and defeated all the teams in the north. During this period, the opening song of every match was played by Tanghua. Later, the fans found out that the piano songs she played were all original compositions. Moreover, the names were actually related to Lin Xian. Anyway, it was a way to encourage her boyfriend to work hard. The majority of fans expressed that they did not want to watch this public display of affection. Zhang Yandong's team encountered some trouble. The capital behind last year's runner-up team used a dirty trick and kidnapped Xiao Lian. The world is still a little small. Tomorrow ends. Chapter 2047. Even though Xiao Lian was quite skilled, it would only take a little brain power to deal with her. They wanted Zhang Yandong to withdraw from the competition immediately and let Xiao Lian go. When Tanghua heard this, she was not surprised. Even though the plot had been brought forward, the original plot did have such a thing. The club definitely could not let Zhang Yandong withdraw from the competition. They did not even let him know about this to prevent him from affecting the entire team because of Xiao Lian. It was not the first time that Zhang Yandong had been affected by Xiao Lian. In the end, it was when Yunyang who realized that something was wrong and took the initiative to secretly save Xiao Lian. He managed to save her, but both of them were injured. When Yunyang's injury was more serious, he had been shot in the leg and could no longer participate in the competition. Not to mention the competition, if he was shot in the leg, he would not be able to walk properly and would become a cripple. Luckily, he was treated in time, and there was no risk of amputation. When Manager Li found out, he was furious. At that time, he had endured it and did not fire Xiao Lian. After all, keeping this news from him had already made Zhang Yandong unhappy. Luckily, there were still a few people in the team who were good in the mid lane. However, when Manager Li looked at Wen Yunyang, Zhang Yandong, and Xiao Lian, it was as if he had been fed a mouthful of shit. Tanghua retracted her thoughts. In the original plot, Wen Yunyang was also injured and could not participate in the competition. However, as Manager Li had said, there were a few substitute members in the team who were good in the mid lane. After so many things had happened before, Manager Li had thought of this. He would often let the other substitute team members take turns to train with them. Lu Hong had objected to it previously, but now he could not help but think that Manager Li was very wise. The competition continued, but Manager Li blocked the news. He even used the excuse that the team members were in contact with external matters and that it would affect their competition, so he temporarily confiscated their phones. Zhang Yandong did not have any objections to this request. After all, the previous competition was because he had seen some negative comments online. He believed that the club's approach was also correct. This way, everyone could play without any distractions. At this time, when Yunyang, who was lying in the hospital, had just woken up. When he knew that he would be a cripple forever, he was stunned. When he found out that something had happened to Xiao Lian, he didn't even think about it. It was as if he had been bewitched. He had to save her. Previously, he only knew that his leg was indeed injured, but he didn't expect it to be so serious. He found a doctor and asked if there was really no way to recover. Maybe you don't understand. Chapter 2048. The opening song of the national finals was still Tanghua's piano piece. Zhang Yandong looked at the person on the stage in a daze. He had never seen this side of her before. The stirring melody was constantly played by her. Zhang Yandong's heart was always calm. He was even not used to it. In his impression, Tanghua was always running behind him. When had he ever seen her shine like this? Even without that pair of eyes, everyone's gaze still fell on her. For a moment, Zhang Yandong did not feel good, especially when the song ended. Lin Xian, who was wearing the team uniform, still held a beautiful and bright rose as usual. He went up to her and held her hand. Then, he placed the rose in her other hand. "Brother Xian, do your best." You will definitely win. Tangwa also wore an earpiece. Everyone could clearly hear her encouraging words to Lin Xian. Then, Zhang Yandong received many strange gazes. Zhang Yandong felt these gazes and understood what the other party was thinking. That's right, they were probably wondering why Tangwa didn't play the piano during his competition when they were engaged in a fiancé relationship. She did not say encouraging words to him on the stage. He did not know that Tangwa could play the piano. Zhang Yandong tried to calm himself down. At the moment, he was impatient. It would not be good for the upcoming competition. Tangwa had already been led down by Lin Xian. She was even led directly to their team. The entire team was talking and laughing with her. Lu Hong sighed. What a difference. Why did Zhang Yandong break off the engagement with her? Manager Li saw this scene and could not help but ask Lu Hong. Today was the national finals. There would be several entertainment programs at the beginning. Not only would there be programs at the beginning, there would also be programs at the end. They were all programs with this game as the theme. Lu Hong did not know what to say. He could only tell the truth. I don't know either. This girl plays the piano very well. Why didn't I think of such a thing before? Manager Li really wanted to scold in his heart. The people under his club were really useless. This was such a good thing to hype up. Zhang Yandong was also a stupid pig. What was wrong with this girl? It was said that his eyes and hands were injured because of Zhang Yandong. Fuck, what a good persona. The girl was injured for the sake of her lover, but she still did not give up on her dream. She was willing to use her music to liven things up for her lover, and she stood on this stage again. The boy promised to take care of her forever. Knowing her dream, he chose to use this method to let her stand on the stage again. If this was known to the world, they would be an immortal couple, a talented man and a beautiful woman. What a bunch of idiots. Manager Li was trembling with anger. Why did he have to provoke that Xiaolian? What a bunch of good-for-nothings. Chapter 2049. Manager Li, take a look at this. Actually, the reason why she is standing here today is because there is someone who is willing to help her. Lu Hong felt that if he didn't say anything on behalf of Tangwa, he would really die of guilt. Looking at how well Tangwa was doing now, he felt that Zhang Yandong had treated her badly in the past. He was only telling the truth to Manager Li. He didn't want Manager Li to bring trouble to him if anything happened. Manager Li wasn't someone who couldn't differentiate between right and wrong. He was someone who could clearly differentiate between right and wrong. However, in the face of benefits, he would turn a blind eye. If he could get someone to create some hype, the other party wouldn't be willing. Of course, he didn't think that Manager Li would be so stupid as to offend the Lin family. However, he still had to explain clearly to the other party why Tangwa had changed. He didn't want the other party to be fooled by Zhang Yandong's persona. At this moment, he had already decided to resign after this competition. He had entered this industry for his original intentions. He had almost forgotten his original intentions. Perhaps he had climbed too high in the past few years. Therefore, he decided to give up everything and work for a small team or a small club. He wanted to get in touch with a group of young people who had just entered the industry and were passionate about esports. Without the halo of Zhang Yandong's name, he might be able to live a better life. He wouldn't have to do so many things that would make him feel guilty just to stay in this small place. He was just a person who loved esports. He couldn't be like Manager Li, whose original intentions were profits. He could make any concessions and compromises for profits. All in all, he didn't fit in here. Manager Li held his phone and kept scrolling. These were all posts on the internet. It was an article titled, Lin Xian's Girlfriend Pampering Style. This was compiled by the netizens. In any case, it was all about what they saw and knew. Manager Li was originally burning with anger. After reading this article, he was fed a stomach full of dog food. He looked at the innocent Lu Hong and said with a cold face, "This Zhang Yandong really isn't wronged." He looked at the members of both sides and said, "Today, Zhang Yandong is going to lose. It's not an injustice." Lu Hong was shocked. He never thought that Manager Li would say such a thing. Zhang Yandong would lose? Would Zhang Yandong lose? Would the undefeated legend be defeated today? Manager Li didn't say anything. He turned around and left, muttering, "It's better for this club to take in more fresh blood. Young people, be more energetic, and have more competition. This is the future of this profession. Only then would they be able to make more money. How could one Jiang Yandong do it? If something were to happen to Jiang Yandong today, he would basically be crippled. No. What he needed to do now was to look for those unorthodox gamers and recruit them at a high price. It would be best if he could coax them into signing a contract to sell themselves. When Lu Hong heard this, he began to figure out what was going on. What Manager Li meant was that he needed to find some fresh blood to replace Jiang Yandong's position. Thinking about it, the esports industry was such a young profession. Jiang Yandong was already 20 years old. He had less than 2 years left. Tanghua didn't know that Manager Li already had a lot of ideas. Now, Lin Xian was officially on stage. Brother Xian, if you win this round, I'll give you a kiss when you come back. Peak. Chapter 2050. Lin Xian's eyes lit up when he heard that. The other teammates thought, "You can do that?" Then, when the competition started, the audience present and those watching the live broadcast realized that Lin Xian was very aggressive today. He had beaten Jiang Yandong until he was forced to retreat. This was a little unusual. Jiang Yandong already knew some of Lin Xian's tactics. They weren't this aggressive. He had discussed with his teammates how to break Lin Xian's game. He had not expected the other party to be so aggressive. Within a few minutes, they were in a disadvantageous position. In the end, Lin Xian won. The camera captured Lin Xian's excited eyes, and his ears were a little red. This was different from before. Lin Xian had won so many matches before, but he had never shown such an expression. Then, the host couldn't help but interview him and ask if he had beaten Jiang Yandong. He was especially excited. Lin Xian said, "I'm quite happy to win the competition. But just now, Xiaogua said that if I win this match, she will kiss me." Then, he rejected the interview and hurried to Tanghua's seat, looking like he was going to receive his reward. Host? Audience? Jiang Yandong's heart sank. Before he could recover from his defeat, he saw Lin Xian run to Tanghua. Tanghua seemed to be a woman of her word. She hooked her arm around Lin Xian's neck and kissed his forehead. The host followed and heard Tanghua say, "If I win the second match, I will kiss you twice." Host. She doesn't believe that a kiss can win the competition. Jiang Yandong's heart was cold. He didn't know what to feel. That was his ex-fiancée. Now, in order to encourage Lin Xian, she actually said that if he won the competition, he could kiss her. Although he didn't hear what she said, it was probably similar to the previous match. Impossible. He had been careless in the previous match. Lin Xian could forget about winning the next match. Little did he know that he was already anxious. He was different from his usual calmness. He could no longer accurately judge how strong his opponent was. Sure enough, the audience realized that both sides had changed their strategies in the second match. Jiang Yandong's fans were a little worried when they saw Jiang Yandong's slightly impatient behavior. On the other hand, Lin Xian was not as impatient as he had been in the previous match. On the contrary, he was not anxious at all. However, if you thought that he had not done anything, you would find that Jiang Yandong was at a disadvantage again. Everyone quieted down. They had never encountered such a situation before. After all, in their hearts, no matter how powerful Lin Xian was, he could not compare to Jiang Yandong. After all, Jiang Yandong was an invincible legend. Do you know what Tanghua and Lin Xian were talking about? The host took the opportunity to walk around the audience and reveal a secret to them. After all, when the time came, these might be collected and broadcasted on TV. How could they miss out on such a wonderful scene? Everyone was speechless when they heard that Tanghua had said that she would kiss Lin Xian twice in the second round. How could a competition be like this? This match lasted for 20 minutes. In today's fast-paced competition, 20 minutes was already very long. This was also because both sides were very strong. When the audience saw Jiang Yandong's crystal explode, they all stood up in silence. The legend of a sure loss was finally broken. They all looked in Lin Xian's direction. They saw him hurriedly running to Tanghua's position after greeting Jiang Yandong's people. So impatient? Baijio, Noo, Nob, O1C. Quick wear. Supporting female lead. Calm down. The peak. Chapter 2051. Then, they watched as Tangwa cupped his face and kissed him twice. The originally solemn atmosphere was instantly broken. The host quickly ran over to Lin Xian to interview him. He asked him how he felt and how he felt after winning. He even asked him if he had predicted that he would win today. Lin Xian, I'm happy. I predicted it. The host then asked him if he had anything else to say. Lin Xian, I hope that Xiaogua can continue to use this method to encourage me in the following individual competitions. The host. After these words were heard by the audience, they didn't know what to do. Their expressions kept changing. It turned out that Lin Xian's image in their hearts had collapsed. They hadn't expected Lin Xian to be such a person. Naturally, in the following individual competitions, it was as if Lin Xian was the only one present. Zhang Yandong's momentum was gone. Even if he had good skills, he was no match for Lin Xian in this situation. But Tangwa believed that even if Zhang Yandong was in good condition, he wouldn't be able to win against Lin Xian. This time, Lin Xian's team had won first place. They could finally participate in the international competition. The entire team was overjoyed. The Lin Corporation also hadn't expected that their children would achieve such an achievement. They were so happy that they had even fulfilled their initial promise. Then, all the stores under the Lin Corporation had a discount. They even wrote the reason for the discount. It was to celebrate their children's victory in the national competition. If they didn't have anything to repay them, they would give everyone a discount. Wasn't it just a discount? They didn't rely on this to make money. Now, the citizens knew that the sons of the Lin Corporation had won first place. The elders were so happy that they wanted to repay the citizens. Such a grand occasion had never happened before. Then, all the citizens, including the aunties who woke up early every day to buy groceries, were thinking about how they hoped that these outstanding young men would win again in the next competition. This time, the international competition wasn't held in their home country. In less than 2 days, Tangwa followed Lin Xian and the rest to go abroad to adapt. And Zhang Yandong hadn't recovered from his defeat when he heard the news that Xiao Lian and Wen Yunyang were injured. Previously, when Wen Yunyang didn't go to the mall, he asked around. Everyone told him that something had happened to Wen Yunyang's family, and he had no choice but to come back. Only now did he understand what an accident meant. It was basically Xiao Lian being kidnapped. After Wen Yunyang found out, he went to save Xiao Lian and lost himself. Now that one of his legs was crippled, he could only be a cripple for the rest of his life. He looked at Wen Yunyang, whose face was pale and who had lost a lot of weight. For a moment, he felt complicated. It was no wonder that Xiao Lian had been taking care of Wen Yunyang. He was just angry. Why didn't the club tell him that something had happened to Xiao Lian? Everyone told him that it was Manager Li who had blocked the news, fearing that it would affect his competition. Zhang Yandong did not accept this reason. He felt that no matter what, such a serious matter should be notified to him. Manager Li simply couldn't stand Zhang Yandong anymore. Now that the legend of invincibility was gone, Zhang Yandong's wings had hardened. In that situation, even if he told the other party, what could Zhang Yandong do? Would he be like Wen Yunyang, rushing over to save people and turning himself into a cripple? Shouldn't this kind of a legal matter be solved by directly calling the police? Rushing over to seek death, he was simply a stupid pig. Manager Li didn't ask the other party if he didn't want to work anymore. Although he was angry at Zhang Yandong, he also remembered that the other party had won glory for the club. His strength was not bad, so he didn't want to fall out with him. He didn't expect that. Zhang Yandong would be the first to shed all pretense of cordiality. You don't want to work anymore? Yes, you can hang me out. I don't want to stay here. There's no point in staying in this place that doesn't have any human feelings. Manager Li took a deep breath and resisted the urge to scold him. All right, peek. Chapter 2052. Manager Li was a man of his word. The next day, he put up Zhang Yandong's name. Although he had lost a match, Zhang Yandong's strength and reputation were still there. When he was put up, all the clubs were shocked. Zhang Yandong. No way? After the confirmation, the other clubs were discussing how to recruit Zhang Yandong to their side. In the esports world, winning and losing were common. This time, they all saw clearly that Lin Xian's team's coordination was really good. It was practically perfect, and their fighting skills had improved a lot. In addition, Tanghua had used her beauty to make Lin Xian fight. Zhang Yandong's loss was nothing. He was still young, and there was still a chance. Therefore, in less than 2 days, Zhang Yandong was signed by another team. In less than 2 days, Manager Li received Lu Hong's resignation. At that time, Manager Li was smiling as he brought in a few young youths. He even said to them, "Our club is still capable. As long as you are willing to work hard, it is not impossible for you to be better than Zhang Yandong in the future." Because of the previous failures, Manager Li decided to talk to those youths himself and coax them to sign with the club. In the early stages, he had to keep an eye on them. The people he had chosen should not be wrong, right? Not only that, he also planned to change the management team of the club and the people in the marketing team. These idiots were really too stupid. They actually used the entertainment industry's method of promoting a couple with anyone they saw. What a fucking couple. To promote a couple with Zhang Yandong, they had to be someone like Tanghua or someone who could stand at the same height as him. To promote a newcomer to the industry with him, wouldn't they be promoting him to the ground? They didn't know shit, and they had to learn that. Since that was the case, why not just recruit a team from the entertainment industry? Manager Li was thinking when he heard that Lu Hong wanted to resign. He looked at him and said, "Coach Lu, think about it more. I still believe in your ability." Manager Li was a little reluctant to let Lu Hong go. He pondered for a moment and knew what Lu Hong was thinking. "Coach Lu, what do you think of these young people I found?" Lu Hong asked them about their situation and found out that they were all from the district ahead. They were all 15 or 16 years old youths. Previously, he had learned that they were all passers-by with dreams of esports. Not bad. I was fortunate enough to watch a video of their summit match. Coach Lu, I know that you have always been interested in esports, but where there are people, there will be disputes. No matter where you go, it will be the same. Manager Li patted Lu Hong and whispered, "You might as well stay with me. Let's not talk about what happened before. Aren't you interested in those young people? It doesn't matter where you teach. What kind of results you teach, isn't it all up to you? Other than management matters, you still have to deal with the strategic issues. I've never interfered, right? Go back and think about it. Once you leave this place, you won't have so much freedom." Zhang Yandong left, Xiaolian was fired by me. When Yunyang also left, and I took over the management team. Coach Lu, I recognize your ability. It's up to you whether you want to stay or not. After Manager Li finished speaking, he placed the resignation letter in Lu Hong's hands and patted him on the shoulder. "I already had a hunch that we would lose this competition. It's normal to lose. I'm not disappointed at all. This is also a wake-up call for us. There's no such thing as an undefeated legend. It's just a gimmick. Go back and think about it. Peak." Chapter 2053. In the end, Lu Hong didn't leave. He stayed behind to train the youngsters. He realized that Manager Li was a man of his word. The previous teams had all been replaced by him. This time, the people who came over seemed to be much more professional. Every time something happened, he would react very quickly. Lu Hong looked at the energetic youngsters in front of him and felt a little more confident. This time, not only did he have to train them how to play the game, but he also had to remind them how to be human. He didn't want to see another Zhang Yandong. When Lu Hong was training the youngsters in the club, he heard that Lin Xian had led the entire team to win the championship in the international competition. He watched the live broadcast. The opening song was still Tanghua's performance. Every time they won, Lin Xian would ask for a reward in front of her. The reward was a kiss. TSK. The world is degenerating day by day. Youngsters these days are really unscrupulous in order to win. Hearing Manager Li's words, Lu Hong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had always thought that people like Manager Li reeked of money, were unreasonable, and would do anything for money. Now he understood that it wasn't like that. Although Manager Li loved to earn money, he wouldn't do things that were devoid of conscience. He wouldn't treat his team members badly either. As long as they were obedient and trained well, he would give them equal opportunities. As for outstanding people, resources should be given to them. Manager Li said to him, "If everyone is equal, is it fair to those who are more talented? Of course, Resources should be used to nurture those who are more talented. That's their value. If they're mediocre and don't work hard, who's to blame? This isn't a charity place. You're doing it for your dreams. I'm doing it for money. There's no conflict. If you're not suitable for this place, then it's best to change careers as soon as possible. He thought about it carefully. It was like that. On the day they won the international competition, Lin Xian proposed to Tanghua. Of course, she agreed. The two of them stood on the stage hand in hand and were watched by the audience all over the world. After Zhang Yandong was signed by another team, he was still involved with Xiaolian. Xiaolian also felt very guilty towards Wen Yunyang. She was hesitant and didn't know what to do. Then, when Wen Yunyang went abroad, he didn't inform her. He only sent her a message and called her. It's over. Wen Yunyang's cold voice came through the phone. You don't have to thank me, and don't think that I'm doing this for your sake. I'm not that selfless. I just want to find a quiet place. I don't want to get involved because of your relationship. Wen Yunyang, what I said is true. You didn't like it, but you liked my love and gentleness for you. She wouldn't hesitate because of Zhang Yandong. Instead, she would marry me directly. You're not with Zhang Yandong because you feel guilty. I'm crippled because of you. Even now, I still have to be the catalyst for your relationship. You two, just let me go. I'll leave you too. Okay? After hanging up, Xiaolian couldn't contact Wen Yunyang anymore. Even Zhang Yandong couldn't. The two of them hugged each other and talked to each other for a while before they got together. One day, when Zhang Yandong went to the competition, Old Man Zhao's sentence came out. Even though Xiaolian handed in a lot of things, Old Man Zhao only escaped the death penalty and was sentenced to life imprisonment. After all, the things he stole were too many and involved a lot of things. Xiaolian suddenly thought of her grandfather. She felt very helpless and instantly thought of Zhang Yandong. Baijio, Noo, Nob, O1C. Quick-wear, supporting female lead, calm down, peak. Chapter 2054. At that time, she didn't think too much and forgot that Zhang Yandong was playing that day, so she called him. In this team, they didn't keep their phones during matches. At that time, Zhang Yandong had just finished a match. When he received the call and heard the crying, he didn't care about anything else and ran away. As expected, the whole team was furious. When the two of them remembered, it was too late. Zhang Yandong paid the penalty and was chased away by the club. Xiaolian felt guilty. Zhang Yandong thought that someone would want him since he was so good, but no one was willing to sign him. There were rumors online that Zhang Yandong, the legend of his generation, was ruined by Xiaolian. Zhang Yandong eventually became a broadcaster. He had a lot of fans and was skilled. Plus, he was good-looking and had a decent income. Xiaolian was sad for a long time when Old Man Zhao was sentenced to life imprisonment. She had been plotting how to break him out of prison. The two of them lived together. Xiaolian didn't do anything and had to rely on Zhang Yandong for everything. Over time, the two of them hated each other. This time, during a live stream, he had gotten into a big fight. It really made people eat a big melon. Zhang Yandong was unruly and a little arrogant. He didn't respond to his fans and still had his old arrogance. Over time, his popularity also dwindled. But his family didn't lack money and he wasn't at his wits' end. It was just that he didn't feel good about it. When Zhang Yandong's parents came back to attend Tangua's wedding, Xiaolian went with Zhang Yandong. That day, another incident happened. Madame Chun recognized Xiaolian as the thief and couldn't help but say it softly. Zhang Yandong's parents were innocent people. When they heard it, they went to investigate. When they came back, they objected to the two of them being together. Xiaolian thought that they were looking down on her and argued with Zhang Yandong. When Zhang Yandong heard her say bad things about his parents, the two of them got into a fight. In the end, they broke up. Xiaolian, who was living on the streets, met Tong Huai, who kindly took her home. For a moment, Xiaolian was so grateful to Tong Huai that she forgot about the past. This time, Zhang Yandong wasn't around, and Tong Huai wasn't on guard either. Not only did he succeed, but he also took a lot of photos. However, he had underestimated Xiaolian. She was slightly different from the other girls. When her body recovered its strength, She killed him directly and fled. She fled to the depths of the mountains and forests and hid there for several years, but she did not stop practicing martial arts. Over the years, she had become a wanted criminal. As long as she hid deep in the mountains and forests, she would never be caught. However, she still wanted to save Old Man Xiao. However, many years had passed and the city had changed too quickly. She had no choice but to sneak into Jiang Yandong's house, but she was discovered again. Jiang Yandong looked at her pitifully and thought of all the things that had happened in the past. He had taken her in and not reported her. He had even given her a fake identity and given her money. He warned her not to cause any more trouble. As for the villa next to the Jiang family's house, it had already been sold. The Jiang family and family Tang had less and less contact. Jiang Yandong had never thought that Xiao Lian would break out of prison and get caught. Not only that, the police even came to his door and accused him of harboring a murderer. They wanted to take him back as well. In the end, Xiao Lian went to prison and Jiang Yandong was sentenced to a few years. Host, was the original owner's car accident really an accident? The system's voice sounded. It had carefully analyzed the plot of this world over the years and found a loophole. Tanghua said, "No. How could it be an accident? Who was it?" Tong Huai. The system suddenly understood. According to the plot it had analyzed, it made sense. Tong Huai was indeed a crazy person. He was the kind that would never know pain if he did not get hurt. 10 years later, with Lin Xian and the Lin family's sponsorship of the medical field, the country's medical field continued to expand. Finally, the medical equipment and medicine could be used to operate on Tanghua. After Tanghua's eyes recovered, Lin Xian hugged her waist and rested his chin on her forehead. "Xiaogua, do you want to participate in the competition? Why are you bringing this up? In a few years, I'll be 40. It's not too late. There are people who only become masters at 80. Xiaogua, if you want to, you can go. I like to see you standing on the stage and shining." Tanghua giggled. "Coach Lin, you're already so old. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at for saying such things?" "No, everyone is used to it." "Okay, but you have to come with me. I've been taken care of by you all these years. I'm already a giant baby. I don't know how to put on makeup, comb my hair, or dress up. Coach Lin, if I become a cripple, you have to take responsibility." "Take responsibility, take responsibility. I'll take responsibility for the rest of my life." Peak. Chapter 2055. Senior Tang. What's wrong? Hearing this voice, Tanghua immediately came back to her senses. She looked up and saw an ordinary-looking boy looking at her. The other party was wearing a simple t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. It was the simplest outfit for a man at the moment. She glanced at the suitcase in his hand and then looked around. She was surrounded by young men and women who were full of vigor. Most of them were in groups of about 10 to 20 people, pulling their suitcases and following the people in front of them. Looking at the signs around her, she instantly understood that this should be the time for new students to register. This average-looking boy with an extraordinary temperament should be this year's new student. And just now, the other party had called her senior, which meant that she was also a student of this school. However, at this time, she didn't receive the memory, so she didn't know the specific situation. But while she was deep in thought, she felt the boy in front of her scanning her body. Although his gaze was hidden, she still felt it. The other party's eyes swept across her face quickly. She wouldn't miss the surprise and excitement in his eyes. New by Chinese Network. Netsp. M. Furthermore, the other party was still sizing up her figure. With that fiery gaze, anyone could guess what this person was thinking. It turned out that he was a pervert. Senior Tang? Although Li Fan really wanted to admire beauties, there was a big sun above his head. He had no interest in standing under the sun. He only wanted to settle the school matters as soon as possible and make new friends. As for this beautiful woman in front of him, he would ask for her number first. He was also very surprised to meet such a beautiful senior as soon as he arrived. How could he have known that the woman in front of him had changed? She was no longer the same person. "I'm a little dizzy." As soon as Tanghua finished speaking, her face turned pale. It looked like she was really going to faint. Li Fan also didn't expect that it would be such a situation. Thinking that the weather was so hot, he must have received many new students today. It would be strange if he didn't faint from the heat. Of course, he wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity to perform. He quickly went over to support Tangwa. Tangwa took 2 steps back. Junior, I might need to rest for a while. It's okay. Your health is more important. Where's the infirmary? I'll send you there. I want to go to the bathroom first. Just now, Tangwa had already found the location of the washroom. God was on her side. It was not far from here. Therefore, she pointed into the distance and said, I'll go over first. Why don't you wait for a while and rinse yourself with cold water? You'll be fine soon. It was just too hot just now. Li Fan expressed his worry and wanted to send her over. Tangwa didn't refuse. Chapter 2057. Although countless women were willing to be with Li Fan, they didn't even care about fame and fortune. But in this world, there were always people who were unwilling. The original owner was one of the few who was unwilling to be with Li Fan. Before the original owner went to university, she was already engaged and had a fiancé named Zhang Xing. Family Tang and Zhang family were family friends. The two of them knew each other since they were young. As for whether they had feelings for each other, they might have some, but it wasn't strong. The original owner didn't hate Zhang Xing. Zhang Xing's character was also passable. He was a gentleman. As for why she chose to be engaged to Zhang Xing in the end, there were 3 reasons. Firstly, they had to know each other's background and the relationship between the 2 clans existed. Second, in this circle, there were very few young people she was familiar with who didn't look for women outside. They all changed girlfriends very diligently. On the other hand, this Zhang Xing, since young, they had been in the same school. He was rarely unfaithful and half-hearted. This was very rare. He was also good to the original owner. Third, compared to other suitors, she could feel that Zhang Xing really liked her. Since she didn't have anyone she liked and had a good impression of Zhang Xing, his character was good, then getting engaged was also a good choice. In this world, even if they were married, they could still be separated in the future if they weren't suitable. It was better to give it a try. With this kind of character, when meeting someone like Li Fan, she naturally wouldn't bow down like other women. When Li Fan saw the original owner for a day, he was shocked. Later on, he appeared in front of her, but the original owner's character was indifferent. She didn't like him and kept a distance from him. This made Li Fan very upset. Later on, when he found out that the original owner had a fiancé, he felt even more unlucky. Once, when Li Fan was pestering the original owner, the fiancé, Zhang Xing, happened to bump into him. He mistakenly thought that the original owner had cuckolded him. At that time, Li Fan also tried his best to explain, but the more he explained, the worse it became. He understood men too well. He knew what to say to provoke Zhang Xing and make him angrier. Sure enough, Zhang Xing left with a straight face. Because of Zhang Xing's actions, Li Fan would make the original owner sad. Seeing the other party's true colors, he would break off the engagement with the other party and be with him. Unexpectedly, the original owner said to him with a cold face, "Even if I don't be with Zhang Xing, I won't be with you." Everything you said just now infuriated Zhang Xing. You know very well what you're thinking. I didn't expose you before because I wanted to keep a distance so that you could understand. I didn't expect you to push your luck. At that time, one could imagine how angry Li Fan was. This was the first time. The first time a woman had unhesitatingly dissected his heart and left him no face at all. New by Chinese Network. NEPSP, mobile phone, :/m. After that, the original owner left and told him not to waste his time because it was impossible between them. It wasn't that she didn't see Li Fan's ability. He had just entered university for less than a year, and he had already opened a company in a bustling manner. He had even befriended quite a few big shots of the upper class. But did she care about these things? She had always been an indifferent person. She only agreed to get engaged with Zhang Xing because she did not want to put her family in a difficult position. She could be with anyone as long as she thought he was qualified. Li Fan was flirting with those women every day. Long ago, she had already asked someone to investigate. How could she be interested in such trash? Of course, she had also investigated the changes in Li Fan's high school, but she didn't know the reason at all. This was also why she had always turned a blind eye to it. She was afraid that if she really angered the other party, it would cause trouble for her family. She had never thought that Li Fan was so narrow-minded. Want to chat with more like-minded people about quick transmigration, female supporting character, calm down, talk about life, find a confidant, peak. Chapter 2058. Li Fan hated the original owner, but the original owner was the woman he wanted, so he didn't want to do anything to her for the time being. Therefore, he put pressure on the Zhang family. For the sake of his family, Zhang Xing took the initiative to break off the engagement with the Tang family. At the same time, he said that he wanted to withdraw his investment in a big project that they had invested in together. For this project, the Tang family had invested more than half of their assets. If they dared to do this, wouldn't it mean that the two of them were engaged and would be in-laws in the future? In order to protect themselves, the Zhangs acted willfully, causing the family Tang to face a crisis. If they couldn't keep up with the cash flow, they would face all kinds of problems. At this time, the original owner's close friends told her that Li Fan was very powerful. As long as she went to find Li Fan, he would definitely be able to help her. As for the conditions, she would definitely be willing to become Li Fan's woman. Hearing the advice of the people around her, the body's original owner instantly understood that Li Fan had also taken in her close friends. As soon as she thought of this, she felt disgusted. In fact, there were many people in the school who wanted to become Li Fan's woman. The original owner also didn't understand why these women were like crazy. Li Fan is so disgusting. Sharing a man with so many women, don't you feel disgusted? Later on, Li Fan's various women came to look for her. In any case, they were all trying to persuade her to agree. As long as she followed Li Fan, her family would not be at a disadvantage, and it would be even better than before. New by Chinese Network. Nepsp. M. Kamshi still didn't agree. Later on, the shareholders of Tangkor and the family, other than her parents, all tried to persuade her to agree. She cast her gaze on her parents. At that time, her heart was cold and she felt powerless. At that time, she thought that as long as her parents persuaded her to agree, she would agree. However, after the Tang family's crisis was resolved, she would go and die. Once she died, everything would be over. Let her serve Li Fan, dream on in her next life. If he agreed to resolve Tangkor's crisis, then he would be returning the favor of them raising him. She never thought that her parents would be even angrier than she was and take her away from Tangkor. The family of three moved into a small house. As for what would happen to Tangkor, her mother had said at the time, let them do whatever they want. After all, they weren't the ones selling their daughter, so of course they wouldn't feel bad. Even if it's a little bitter and poor, it's still better than selling my daughter. When Li Fan heard this news, he angrily vented all his anger on Tang Corporation. Not long after, Tang Corporation went bankrupt. They didn't know if it was a matter of face, but Li Fan didn't come to find trouble with them. But from time to time, they would bump into each other. The other party always had a high and mighty look on his face, hugging his women left and right. That look seemed to be asking her if she regretted it. She regretted not following him. A few decades later, Li Fan and his women were still young and beautiful. The original owner had never married and was already old. Li Fan saw that she did not have the slightest bit of remorse and lost his patience. The senior sister that stunned him back then had already become an old woman and was about to be buried. Since then, the original owner had never seen Li Fan again. She didn't know what happened to Li Fan after that. After reading these memories, Tangguo admired the original owner of this body for being an ordinary girl, and also had a good impression of the family Tang couple. To give up everything and not be willing to let his daughter suffer, this kind of courage was not something an ordinary person could have. Xian Shi, One Chinese Network. Li Fan thought that the original owner was not living well, but in fact, other than not living a luxurious life, she was living quite well. Her only regret was that her parents had to accompany her through hardships. Although her feelings were indifferent, her heart was not made of iron. She remembered the people who were good to her. She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about quick transmigration, female supporting character, calm down, talk about life, find a confidant, peak. Chapter 2059. Host, do you want to destroy your worldview? The system asked secretly. It already felt that the host was probably sharpening her skills. It just didn't know how the host was going to play this time. Tangwa let out a low chuckle. Help me share the fun things in this world with your friends in the group. Let them see this weirdo. Okay. The system's favorite thing to do was to replace Tangwa and share the exciting stories in the small world with the friends in the group. Then it told Tangwa about the reaction in the group. However, when he entered the group, he found that something was wrong. Originally, there were a total of 12 people in the group, including Tangwa, the group leader. But now he found that there was one more person in the group. He quickly looked at the list and compared it carefully. Apart from the name Ji Xiaoxi, which had turned gray, there was one more person called Wen Yahweh. He didn't have time to share the story and quickly exited the group to tell Tangwa the situation. There's one more person? Tangwa was surprised. Ever since Tangwa took over this interdimensional communication group, she didn't care about anything else. Because the result of her and the system's research was that this group was formed by energy. The research showed that as long as the people in the group didn't die, there would be people chatting and sending red packets to the group. The group would also exist forever. How long could she live? Anyway, she had traveled for so many years, so she wouldn't die anytime soon. The other friends were either in the celestial world, the magic world, or the interstellar world. It was easy for them to live for thousands of years, so they didn't need to worry about the group disappearing. Now that there was one more person, she was a little curious. She quickly entered the group and saw an unfamiliar name, Wen Yahweh. She thought about it and realized that she had never heard of it before. But she was a little happy because although she was the group leader and had a lot of power, the only thing she couldn't do was to recruit people. Otherwise, she would have pulled in the people she knew to play with her. Now that there was a new member, it meant that the group would be lively once the right person was recruited. Sure enough, she saw that Ziyun and the others were asking about the new member. However, they talked for a long time, but the new member didn't seem to have any response. Internet mobile/m. Netpsp. Netpsp. M. Com. Qishao. Maybe the newcomer is shy. Why don't you try sending a red packet? My sister had told me before that as long as there was a red and white, she would know who was lurking around. Tangwa. Ziyun. That makes sense. I'll give it to you. Wen Yahweh. This name sounds like a girl. What attracted girls was nothing more than beautiful jewelry and dresses, but what attracted girls the most was youth and beauty. Tangwa. I have to say, Brother Ziyun is right. She didn't say anything and waited to see what would happen next. Ziyun. Based on my speculation, I don't think he's from a high-level plane. If it was someone from the same field, they would have found this group very quickly and asked about our situation. My guess was that when Yahweh was from a normal dimension. Moyuntion. Just give me a red packet. Don't be so sentimental. General Billy. That's right, Ziyun. Hurry up with the red packet. If the newcomer runs away, we'll be angry with you. Margaret. Yes, I don't know if the school bell has arrived in the new world. I don't think so. She hasn't greeted us yet. When she comes, we must tell her that there's a newcomer. I want to chat with more like-minded people about. Chapter 2060. This time, Ziyun did not waste any more words and sent a red packet. It was a special red packet. Inside was the beauty pill that he had just mentioned, the kind that mortals could use. Then the group became quiet, waiting for the newcomer to receive the red packet. Tangwa remembered that there was still Li Fan waiting outside. She looked at the time and saw that 10 minutes had passed. She let the system look at the situation in the group and walked out of the bathroom. As soon as she came out, she saw that Li Fan was a little anxious. She maintained the cold and indifferent character of the original owner. After all, she did not want to talk too much with people like Li Fan. The other party's gaze now made her feel even more uncomfortable. Senior Tang, are you okay? I'm fine. Let's go. After bringing Li Fan through the process, Tang Guo rejected Li Fan's invitation to eat and exchange contact information and left. Although he did not get her contact information, Li Fan was not discouraged. He believed that it would not be long before this cold senior became his woman. Tang Guo felt the other party's determined gaze and almost vomited. How shameless. She used the excuse that she was not feeling well and returned to the dormitory. Today, to welcome the new students, the 4 people in their dormitory came. At present, the other 3 should still be busy. Thinking that 2 of the 3 would become Li Fan's woman, Tang Guo felt a little speechless. As for why only 2 people succeeded, it was because the remaining girl was too ordinary and Li Fan was not interested in her. But that girl had always been secretly in love with Li Fan and did not get married. Hearing this news, Tang Guo quickly entered the group and found that everyone was discussing enthusiastically. Hello, everyone. What are you discussing so enthusiastically? Then everyone told her that there was a newcomer, but the newcomer did not speak and left after receiving the red packet, which made them feel very strange. Tang Guo sent everyone a red packet of food as usual, and then she found that the newcomer also received a roast chicken and waited silently. She wanted to see if this newcomer was good or bad. The brothers and sisters in the group were no longer noobs. If it was a good one, everyone would probably take care of it. If it was a bad one, then wait for the other party's name to turn gray. When Yao Wei looked at the plate of roast chicken in front of her and the fragrant white pill in her hand and was a little dumbfounded, she thought she was dreaming. She raised her hand with difficulty to rub her eyes. Feeling the pain from her arm and cheek, she finally believed that everything in front of her was not a dream. She had casually clicked on 2 red packets just now and got a pill and a plate of roasted chicken. The aroma of the steaming hot roast chicken wafted into her nose, causing her to salivate. No, she couldn't eat it. Chapter 2061. When Yao Wei originally planned to throw the roast chicken into the trash can. After all, she was going to starve to death. However, she could tell that the chef had put in a lot of effort into making the roast chicken. It would be a pity to throw it away. She also had the white pill in her hand. She had gotten these 2 things from the red packet. If she was still a healthy person, she might not be able to wait to find out what was going on. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, however, 70% of her skin was now unrecognizable. Her face in the mirror was covered with burn scars. She could not even lift her arms. Even lifting them slightly would cause her severe pain. At this moment, she was sitting on the chair in front of the dressing table. She leaned against the back of the chair weakly and looked at the reflection in the mirror tiredly. She did not dare to take a closer look. Even she felt scared looking at her own face. The assets under her name had been distributed. After her death, her lawyer would donate them for her. Although she had paid a lot of liquidated damages, it seemed like she had no money. However, she had been in the entertainment industry for so many years. She had to leave herself a way out. After the accident, she became an abandoned person. She no longer had a place in the entertainment industry. Because she was too popular, she had no friends among the female celebrities. No, she used to have friends. However, they were no longer her friends now. As for what exactly happened to that accident, she didn't want to look into it. Even if she used up all her assets, she would not be able to find out anything. Because she was an abandoned person, no one would help her. As for her family, they had come to visit her after the accident. Later, they found out that she had paid a lot of compensation and sold the villa. They also heard that she needed a lot of money for her follow-up treatment. Therefore, those people left on the same day. After that, they did not call her. If it weren't for the fact that she had left a way out for herself and had some jewels and assets in other places, not only would she have been disfigured, but she would also have ended up on the streets. Since no one cared about her, she would donate the rest of her money. Half an hour later, when Yao Wei looked at the plate of roast chicken and could not help it. I'm going to die anyway. It's so delicious. Even if it's poisonous, it's a pity if I don't try it. When Yao Wei thought that she would starve for a few more days after she ate the roast chicken. If she didn't eat it, she wouldn't be able to rest in peace. Therefore, she quickly ate the roast chicken. It was really fast. She hadn't eaten for 2 days. She was really starving. It was even more painful than dieting in order to look good on camera. As he swallowed mouthful after mouthful of roast chicken, the feeling of fullness slowly increased. She originally thought that after not eating for 2 days and eating such greasy food, her stomach would definitely feel uncomfortable, but she didn't. She didn't know who the chef who made the roast chicken was, but she wanted to invite him over to make her last dinner. After eating a roast chicken, Yahweh felt full of energy and drank a bottle of mineral water. Finally, she pinched the white pill in her hand. I've already eaten the roasted chicken. What's one more strange pill? With that, she swallowed it. New by Chinese Network. Nepsp, M. Nepsp, Tangua, and the people in the group waited for about half an hour before there was finally some movement in the group. Yahweh, excuse me, what group is this? I just grabbed 2 red envelopes, a plate of roast chicken, and a strange pill. I ate them all. Seeing Yahweh appear, everyone in the group, including Tangua, was very happy. Campus Bell, this is a social group. I'm the leader of this group. I want to chat with more like-minded people about transmigration. Female supporting role, calm down. Talking about life, looking for confidence, peak. They were really excited to have a newcomer with a good personality. Previously, they had asked Tangua and found out that even though she was the group leader, she had no way of pulling people in. It was really a pity. School Bell, why don't you share your story? Since you're able to join the group, it means that this is an opportunity. Yahweh thought about it and agreed. She had never heard of anyone who could snatch a plate of roasted chicken from a red packet. Now that she was full, she didn't feel like dying anymore. Since that was the case, she might as well find out more about this group so that she wouldn't have any regrets. Chapter 2063. Yahweh, my name is Yahweh. I live on an ordinary planet. I used to be a famous actress. Yahweh told them about her story. Perhaps it was because she had no one to accompany her. He carefully shared his experience in front of this group of strangers whom he had never met before. The despair in her words made the people in the group silent. Such an experience was too tragic for an ordinary person. When they heard that she planned to starve to death and even hired a lawyer to donate her remaining assets after her death, they understood that she was a very kind girl. If other people heard this, they would at most say some comforting words and sympathize with her. However, the people in this group were all capable people. Her skin was burned, and it was just a matter of a few pills. After hearing this, Tangua said, Yahweh, you don't have to die. Yahweh was confused. I don't have to die? It's painful for me to live. I was discharged from the hospital after only 1 month because I didn't want to be tortured by treatment. My face was burned, and there are not many intact parts of my body. I can't go on. Ziyun, didn't you take a beauty pill before? It should be working now. Look in the mirror and see if there are any changes. Qishao, yes, look in the mirror and see if there are any changes. Even if Ziyun's pills were for ordinary people, they would still have some effect. Yahweh didn't understand, but she also looked in the mirror. She was stunned for a moment. She didn't know if it was her illusion, but she felt that the terrible scars on her face had healed a little. Although it still looked hideous, it was her own face, and she could see any changes clearly. It was indeed better. She was a little excited. When she looked in the group again, she saw the red packet again. She poked it, and a bottle of pills appeared in her hand. She didn't open it immediately, but instead, she told them about her situation. Ziyun told her that it was the effect of the pills. He had just sent her another bottle containing dozens of pills. She could take one a day to slowly recover. She was just an ordinary person, so she couldn't take pills that were too strong. Too strong would cause her body to explode, and it would also expose her abnormality. Yahweh burst into tears. She didn't know what else to say except to thank him. Hearing these comforting words in the group, her hope for life rekindled. Ziyun, it's been a long time since a new member joined the group. We all like new members, so don't think about dying. Pyumyao Fairy, yeah, the school belle is quite nice. She would give us delicacies from various planes from time to time. That plate of roast chicken was delicious, right? He wouldn't be able to eat it after he died. Tangwa added, heal your injuries first. Don't you want to find out who did this to you? After Tangwa finished speaking, she ignored the situation in the group and exited. She quickly took out her phone and searched for Wen Yaowei's name. Sure enough, the next message that popped up was that the former superstar Wen Yaowei's face was burned and disfigured. She scrolled down and saw that it was all about Wen Yaowei's disfigurement. She clicked on Wen Yaowei's homepage and saw a very beautiful and fashionable woman. When Wen Yaowei was talking about her experience, she remembered something that was briefly mentioned in the plot. The reason why it could be brushed aside was because Wen Yaowei had a little relationship with one of the women of the male lead, Li Fan. Chapter 2064. This woman was called Gan Yingying, and she was also a female celebrity. It was said that before Wen Yaowei's accident, the two of them had always been compared. Wen Yaowei was gentle and beautiful, while Gan Yingying was delicate and gorgeous. However, in terms of resources and strength, Wen Yaowei had always been better. However, the two of them had never been angry because of this. It was said that the two of them were very close friends. Every time Gan Yingying appeared, there would be regrets. If Wen Yaowei didn't die, her achievements would definitely not be lower than Gan Yingying's. Gan Yingying would often mention Wen Yaowei and shed tears for her good friend many times. In the plot, Wen Yaowei starved to death. As she said, after starving to death, she asked a lawyer to donate all her remaining assets. At that time, her family even came to make trouble. However, in the end, they were scolded back by Wen Yaowei's fans. Tangwa searched for Wen Yaowei's information and couldn't help but laugh. She didn't expect that this new friend of hers would be in her world. After looking at Wen Yaowei's information, Tangwa searched for Gan Yingying. At present, she was still a big star, but Li Fan didn't have anything to do with her. However, after a while, that might not be the case. After reading it, there wasn't much noise. Gan Yingying's character was not a pure and innocent girl, but a sexy and seductive one. Then, she found a lot of news in the forum. It seemed that all the resources that belonged to Wen Yaowei had fallen on Gan Yingying's head. Gan Yingying seemed to be taking into account their past relationship. She didn't accept it completely and evaded it quite a bit. When she heard Wen Yaowei's statement, she seemed to be very lonely and didn't have many friends. If Gan Yingying really had a good relationship with her, how could she let her starve to death? If a good friend had such a big accident, she wouldn't come to see her every day. She would just call her to comfort her and visit her once a week. It seemed that the relationship between the two of them was not as good as imagined. When she looked at the group again, Wen Yaowei was already chatting with everyone and was very grateful to them. The people in the group gave her a lot of things, all kinds of strange things. Wen Yaowei was a little embarrassed, so she asked everyone what they liked. For women like Pyumyao Fairy and Margaret, it was definitely a good idea to give them dresses and jewelry. But for the others, she was in a dilemma. Tangwa interjected, just send some food over. They just like that. Just give them more food and they'll be very happy. Okay, I'll call the restaurant right away and ask them to send some food over. Now, he didn't want to die. He had a chance to be reborn. Wen Yaowei did not want to give up either. Tangwa was right. She also wanted to find out who had harmed her. She was unwilling to die like this. Previously, there was no hope. Now that her face could recover, she could still mingle in the entertainment industry, earn money, and establish all kinds of connections. She was not afraid that she would not be able to find out. She prepared all kinds of delicious food for everyone. She also gave Margaret, Pyumyao Fairy, and Tangwa beautiful jewelry, all of which were precious. In this world, each item was worth at least 1,000,000. Not only that, she also ordered expensive watches and some things that men in this world liked. Without asking, she sent them to Ziyun and the others in the group. It was just a little bit of food. She felt really bad about it. After spending the money, she could still earn it. It was not a big deal. When Tangwa saw Ziyun say that he liked watches, she thought for a moment. Ziyun was holding a sword and wearing a long robe. He looked at his watch and said to his opponent, "It's time. Let's eat before we fight." Peak. Chapter 2065. Tangwa didn't look at the messages in the group anymore. She told the system to keep an eye on it and left the dormitory, because a few of her roommates had called her and said that today's new students were almost all received and asked her to go out for a meal. The reason why she didn't refuse was because she would meet Li Fan later. At that time, Li Fan would go out for a meal with his roommates. In the plot, they sat very far away and there was a wall between them. Li Fan was busy making new friends and didn't notice them. The reason why she wanted to go was because something would happen at that restaurant. Li Fan would come here by chance. The second woman he liked, of course, would become his woman later on. She just wanted to confirm if these women liked Li Fan willingly, or if he used some other method to confuse them. If he used some method to confuse them, she wouldn't let Li Fan succeed. I'm bored to death during the holidays. At home, my mother is controlling everything. She doesn't allow me to eat these snacks at all. Her roommate Ranjingdan said. Ranjingdan was a long-legged, rich, and beautiful woman. She was actually quite arrogant. At first, the original owner didn't think that such an arrogant girl like Ranjingdan would be willing to share Li Fan with dozens of women. Another beautiful roommate was called Miao Han. She had a gentle personality and looked very elegant. As for the remaining one called Li Xiaoli, her appearance was slightly more ordinary. She also had a poor family background among them. Everyone still took care of her, so there were no conflicts. Tangwa silently ate with them. She deliberately chose a position where she could see the situation outside. Sure enough, after a while, she heard the sound of a beer bottle breaking on the ground, accompanied by a girl's scream. She glanced at the beautiful girl wearing an apron outside. This was the girl that Li Fan met by chance. She wasn't a student of the university, but an employee of this skewer shop. Outside the school, other than students, there were also some indecent people. Looking at Du Yume, who had fair skin and a beautiful appearance, it was inevitable that he would be unruly after drinking 2 more mouthfuls. Du Yume was helping to open the beer bottle when the big man grabbed her hand. She was so scared that she screamed. Tangwa glanced at Li Fan's position. Sure enough, she saw him walking over and pulling Du Yume behind him. Without saying a word, he grabbed the collar of the burly man and turned him into a pig's head. In the end, the burly man and his men left behind some ruthless words. "Brat, you just wait and see." Then, they hurriedly left. Naturally, Du Yume was grateful and worshipful of Li Fan for escaping the calamity. Tangwa saw that Li Fan even called Du Yume and said, "If you have any problems in the future, you can call me." Then, she saw Du Yume blushing and nodding. She came back with the tray and carefully hid the phone number in her pocket. Heroes saving the damsel in distress would never go out of style. "Tangwa, what are you looking at?" Ranjingdan also looked outside. Someone was causing trouble. "It seems that the person sitting next to us chased them away," Tangwa replied. When Miao Han heard this, she frowned. She obviously did not like this kind of violence. Tangwa was amused when she saw this. At first, the two of them really looked down on Li Fan, thinking that he had no taste, was not handsome, and had a bunch of women. In the end, he was really fragrant. They didn't know what the reason was. Tangwa was no longer interested in Du Yume. The easiest way for a woman to be infatuated with a man was to be a hero saving the damsel in distress. Peak. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.